AITA for putting a stop to my 12-year-old daughter's period party? Let me set the stage. My wife and I, 43M, 42F, have 2 daughters, 7 years apart. 19 years old, was at college in a different state when this happened. Girls are very different. 19 years old is outgoing, even extroverted, loves meeting new people, trying new things, etc. 12 years old is shy, a homebody, finds things she's comfortable with and sticks with them. In fairness, 19 years old was kinda like this until she was 16 or so, maybe it's genetic XD. Couple months ago, 12 years old comes to me in my home office, obviously upset. Stammers a bit, then manages to tell me that she just got her first period. I play the supportive dad, comfort her, and get her a box of sanitary pads my wife had bought earlier in the year, guessing this was going to happen sooner or later, and go over the instructions with her. She goes into her bathroom, does what she has to do, thanks me for my help. I got her some ice cream and Midol, told her there was nothing to be embarrassed about and she could always come to me for anything. Wife gets home later that day, 12 years old tells her what happened. Wife starts crying, my little girl is growing up, etc., then asks who should be invited to the period party, which I only knew of from listening to Bert Kreischer. If they were a thing when our 19 years old started, she never asked for one. 12 years old immediately closes off, says she doesn't want a PP, doesn't want anyone to know. Wife tries to talk to her some more, but 12 years old ignores her and goes to her room. Wife tries to enlist my aid in changing her mind, but I tell her she said she didn't want one, don't worry about it. 2 days later, I get home from running errands and before I can even make it to the stairs, 12 years old runs up to me and asks if she can do her homework in my office. I'm confused, but say sure, and she bolts upstairs. At this point, I started to suspect what was going on, and walked into the living room to find that my wife had not only decorated it like something which wouldn't have looked out of place on my super sweet 16, but there were several family friends, all women, and a few I recognize as neighborhood mothers. I beckon wife into the hall, she asks where 12 years old is, and I tell her she wanted to do homework in my office. She rolls her eyes and starts to move past me, but I step in front of her. Me, what are you doing? Wife, going to get 12 years old, it's her party. Me, she told you specifically she didn't want one of these. Wife, oh, she didn't mean that. This is an important time for a girl, she needs to know not to be ashamed of her body. Me, she's not, I already explained things to her, she just doesn't want to talk about it more. Wife, I don't expect you to understand, this is just for us women. She actually tried to push past me, but I stepped into the doorway and completely blocked her. Wife, what's wrong with you? Me, what's wrong with you? You know how shy 12 years old is, you knew she didn't want you doing something like this, and you did it anyway. Wife, I told you, it's for her own good. We can't let her grow up with a negative attitude towards something so natural. Me, and we're not, I told you, she knows what's going on, she's getting a handle on it, she just doesn't want to talk about it with anyone else for right now. Wife, well, it wasn't your business to tell her about it anyway. Me, you were at work. Was I supposed to ignore her for 4 hours until you got home? Wife, you could have called me, I would have come home. Me, it still would have taken you an hour. She was upset, I knew what was going on, I talked her through it. Wife, you don't know anything about it, it's never happened to you. At this point I gave up. Point to my wife, no, I've never had a period, but I had 3 older sisters and a live-in girlfriend before my wife and I met, plus we've been married almost 21 years. I'm pretty well versed. She again tries to move past me, but I don't move. Me, number 12 years old doesn't want this, I'm not letting you make her do it. Wife, fine, have it your way. She goes back to the living room and tells the other ladies the period party is off because I'm being a jerk. I lose it, follow her in, and let the women know, calmly but in no uncertain terms, that I appreciate what they wanted to do, but 12 years old made it explicitly clear that she did not want this party and my wife is trying to pressure her into it. Several of the moms frown at her, my wife starts to backpedal, talking about how she didn't think 12 years old was being serious, but I ignore her and begin taking down the decorations. Everyone clears out shortly, and once the coast is clear, 12 years old comes back downstairs. My wife gives her a half-backed, IMO, apology, again saying she didn't think 12 years old was serious, but 12 years old also ignores her and just starts doing her homework in her usual place at the table. My wife was pissed at me for a week, claiming I undermined her authority as a parent, apparently, by not helping her force our daughter into doing something she didn't want to do, and made her look back in front of the neighborhood moms, by telling them she'd been doing this against our daughter's wishes. So was I wrong? Update. Hey, everyone. Thought I'd post an update. Yes, it's quick, but it's just a further explanation plus some commentary. Had to split it into two because it was too long. Next part is in the reply to this reply. First, I'd like to thank everyone who supported my decision. Second, to those who decided I'm AI or used ChatGPT to write this, nothing I can say will convince you one way or the other, so do your thing, man. Laughing face. Third, I'm not going to divorce my wife or anything like that. She's an incredible woman, and, as corny as it sounds, my one true love. She's been an amazing mom, never done anything like this before, wasn't planning on posting it to social media, she barely even uses Facebook. She just made a misstep here, for reasons which I will get into shortly. I can't respond to every comment, but I'll expand on some which caught my attention. 12 years old did in fact get the talk from wife when she turned 12. So she knew what was happening, but it was still something she hadn't experienced before, so it threw her a little. I emailed my two closest sisters, and they both said, in their opinions, her reaction was normal. As one of them put it, even at best it can be a shock, regardless of whether or not you're prepared for it, because it just happens, and even if you've felt PMS-style symptoms, without ever having felt them before, you might not guess what they are until afterward. No, I did not notice the decorations being put up. I had to go out and run some errands related to my work, was gone about 3 to 4 hours. More than enough time for wife to decorate. Before we had kids, wife and I agreed we would treat boys or girls the same when it came to bodily functions. I.e., we'd make sure boys would be comfortable going to her with questions or problems if I wasn't around, and vice versa, and over the years we would keep up with age-appropriate literature so we'd be equally informed. Just so happened we only had girls. Around 10 or so, when they started wanting more detailed explanations of where babies come from and such, we always conducted such conversations as a team, making it clear to each of them they could count on either of us. That being said, there have been some things which I never took part in. For example, the 19-year-old never asked me to take her bra shopping, that was all wife. She did, however, occasionally ask me to pick up tampons or such in the years before she went to college. No, 12 years old did not wait to tell me. It happened right after she got home from school on a half-day. Wife works 10-hour shifts, so she wouldn't have been there, as I said in my OP, for another 4 hours. 12 years old has always been closer to wife than me, 19 years old was closer to me than wife, but I was who was available. I'm sure that if we'd both been around, 12 years old would have gone to her mom. I wasn't trying to claim the dialogue was verbatim what we said, my memory isn't that good. But the general tone is there, and some of it I did in fact remember word for word. So, after a few days, things around the house went back to normal. Wife cooled off, 12 years old began talking to her again, and they didn't appear to have any issues. Except that 12 years old began coming to me more often about things instead of her mom. Wife obviously noticed, as they'd been very close before this, and was hurt, but said nothing. I guess she figured she deserved it. Finally, one day after I got back from taking 12 years old to school, wife asked if 12 years old was still angry with her. I said I didn't think so, and wife just, kinda deflated. She looked so miserable that I actually got worried, and asked if SHE was still angry. Wife said no, then admitted that she'd screwed up and gotten too into the concept of what others here have called menstruation celebration, which is a great phrase, it even rhymes. Said she'd been so focused on making sure 12 years old had a positive experience that she brushed aside her reluctance to take part, and in my wife's defense, 12 years old regularly does this. She'll say she isn't looking forward to doing something, but if she pushes past her shyness and takes part, nearly always has a good time. So wife had thought this was just another example of 12 years old doing that, and didn't take it seriously. Then wife said something which threw me for a loop. She asked me if I thought 12 years old hated her now. I was stunned, and automatically replied of course not, she's just, and then I kinda trailed off because I didn't really know what to say. Upset was what I finally settled on. Wife was quiet, then I asked her why she'd been so insistent, since she hadn't tried to do this for 19 years old, no drama there, 19 years old got hers at 13 while they were out shopping, it was handled before they even left the mall. She said when 19 years old started, it was just such a busy day that she didn't really have any time to think about it beyond quick let's get to the bathroom so I can help, and it wasn't until after this that wife really thought about her own first, which basically consisted of her being told virtually nothing beforehand by her emotionally manipulative mother. They'd been no contact for 15 years. Barely being 12 when it happened, and once she did go to her mom, only being handed a box of pads and warned not to get pregnant. Nothing more was ever said about it between them. My wife had to learn nearly everything from a friend's mother. Yeah. That old woman is a piece of work. Wife was determined she wouldn't behave like that toward 12 years old when it happened, but as events show, she basically went too far in the other direction. Then she asked me what I thought she could do to fix this. I told her the truth. 12 years old probably wasn't going to feel comfortable confiding in her again for a while, but if she really wanted to apologize, she should tell 12 years old what she just told me. And so she did. Wife went to pick 12 years old up from school, and when they got home, I saw they'd both been crying, but also seemed happier. Turned out I wasn't quite right, and 12 years old had still been harboring some resentment toward wife for trying to push her into the period party, but after hearing wife's story, 12 years old decided to forgive her, only asking that wife promise not to do something like that again. And 2 months later, this happened in May, things between them seemed to be back to normal. Maybe not the most exciting resolution, but I don't think 12 years old is going to hold a grudge over this or has permanently damaged their relationship.